Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. The Washington Commanders are stirring the rumor mill yet again, and this time it revolves around their latest addition, veteran offensive tackle George Fant. Sources suggest that Adam Peters, the ever-meticulous general manager, felt compelled to make a decisive move after a disappointing preseason outing against the Cincinnati Bengals. Fans and insiders alike are whispering about the implications of Fant joining a unit already riddled with uncertainties. While Fant's credentials are impressive on paper, having logged 75 career starts and the ability to play both tackle positions, the timing of this signing has generated speculation. Could this move signal panic from the front office? Or is it a calculated hedge against potential injuries that have plagued the Commanders' offensive line? The chatter online has been relentless, with debates raging over whether Fant's presence might help stabilize the unit or inadvertently complicate chemistry, especially as pivotal figures like Sam Cosmi and Brandon Coleman remain in question. Fant's journey from undrafted free agent to seasoned NFL veteran is part of the allure, but analysts are pointing out that his recent track record gives pause. In 2024, the offensive lineman saw action in just 2 games for the Seattle Seahawks, largely due to injury setbacks and roster shuffles. Some fans interpret this as a red flag, while others view it as a golden opportunity for Fant to prove his worth once more. Meanwhile, whispers around the locker room hint at mixed reactions from current players, with some reportedly welcoming a versatile addition and others questioning whether integrating a new piece this late in the offseason could disrupt rhythm. Conversations among beat reporters have even touched on Fant's potential role as a swing tackle, a safety net in case projected starters are sidelined. The narrative is building fast, suggesting that this signing is less about immediate fireworks and more about precautionary strategy, yet the speculation alone is enough to get social media buzzing. The most immediate source of intrigue surrounds Sam Cosmi, whose recovery from a torn ACL has been painstakingly slow and meticulously monitored. While head coach Dan Quinn hasn't entirely ruled him out for Week 1, insiders hint at a more conservative approach, placing the stud right guard on the physically unable to perform list to begin the campaign. This development feeds the rumor mill further because it casts a shadow over the presumed starting configuration. If Cosmi isn't ready, the domino effect on the offensive line could be significant, especially with Brandon Coleman's health in limbo. Coleman's early training camp injury, which led to him being carted off the field, has left fans guessing about his potential return timeline. Some observers are suggesting that Fant's acquisition directly correlates with these uncertainties, signaling that management is hedging against a worst-case scenario, though no official word has confirmed this linkage. The narrative continues to simmer. Brandon Coleman's status, or lack thereof, has become one of the most talked-about storylines in Washington. After sustaining an injury early in training camp, Coleman has been conspicuously absent, and the team has not provided a definitive timeline for his return. Rumors suggest that Fant's signing could spell trouble for Coleman's Week 1 role, adding fuel to speculation about reshuffling the offensive line. Online chatter has questioned whether the team is subtly signaling a lack of confidence in Coleman's recovery, while fan forums have exploded with theories ranging from cautious optimism to outright panic. Some insiders hint that Fant could immediately slot into Coleman's projected left guard role if the worst-case scenario unfolds, though Fant himself has historically been a tackle, not a guard. This raises strategic questions about adaptability and alignment, feeding an atmosphere ripe for rumor-mongering and speculative analysis. Washington's bookend tackle tandem of Laramie Tunsil and Josh Connery Jr. is the anchor, yet uncertainty in the interior line has heightened the stakes for the entire unit. If Coleman can't go, projections suggest Nick Allegretti would start at left guard, while Andrew Wiley could shift inside to the right. This domino effect would necessitate Fant operating as a swing tackle, ready to cover either end if injuries strike mid-game. Pundits are already hypothesizing about whether this makes the offensive line more flexible or dangerously vulnerable, noting that chemistry and timing are critical in pass protection schemes. The speculative atmosphere is only intensifying, with commentators framing Fant's arrival as either a masterstroke of insurance policy planning or a subtle admission that depth issues could compromise the line's effectiveness. In Washington, The rumor mill thrives on such gray areas, and Fant's role has become a central talking point. The protection of star quarterback Jayden Daniels is at the center of every discussion surrounding Fant's signing. Analysts and fans alike are weighing whether these adjustments provide necessary insurance or inadvertently destabilize an already tentative unit. Rumors suggest that Peters and offensive line coach Bobby Johnson are facing immense pressure to meld the roster into a cohesive unit without losing offensive rhythm. Social media has been alive with speculation about potential combinations and the consequences of starting the season with a partially improvised line. Some insiders argue that Fant's veteran presence could offer critical stability, especially if Coleman and Cosmi miss early snaps. Others caution that shifting players mid-campaign risks breaking timing between the quarterback and linemen, potentially affecting both pass protection and run blocking. The tension between necessity and experimentation is fueling speculation, making every practice report a potential headline in its own right. Bobby Johnson's task has become a point of intense scrutiny. The offensive line coach is now rumored to be juggling not only Fant's integration, but also the uncertainty surrounding Coleman and Cosmi. Sources suggest that Johnson's philosophy emphasizes cohesion, communication, and precise technique, all of which could be compromised by roster instability. Rumors circulating in sports media posit that Johnson may have to adapt creative rotation strategies to keep the unit synchronized while mitigating injury risk. Some insiders suggest that the veteran Fant could serve as a calming influence on younger linemen, providing stability in high-pressure moments, whereas others worry that constant shuffling may prevent the unit from finding a reliable groove. The speculation has grown so intense that even casual observers are debating Johnson's potential lineup strategies, creating a swirl of conjecture around the Commanders' preparation for Week 1. There is also growing debate over whether Fant's signing represents long-term strategy or short-term insurance. Some insiders whisper that the one-year contract signals a stopgap solution rather than a commitment to revamping the line permanently. Analysts argue that if Fant performs well, he could extend his role, but if the Commanders' projected starters remain healthy, his presence might create friction or limit opportunities. For younger players, fans and social media users are dissecting practice snippets, trying to predict whether Fant will earn a starting role or serve purely as depth. Rumors abound suggesting that management is hedging against multiple contingencies, from injuries to unexpected poor performances, reinforcing the narrative that the Commanders' internal dynamics are far from settled. Each new report or sighting at practice feeds the swirling speculation, making Fant the subject of intense scrutiny. Comparisons between Fant and previous depth options like Tyre Phillips and Foster Sarell are also sparking debate. Some suggest that while Fant is unquestionably a more reliable veteran, he might not be sufficient if multiple starters are sidelined. The rumor mill speculates on whether Fant can handle significant snaps under pressure or whether he will primarily serve as insurance against injury. Analysts and insiders have created detailed projections about how he might be deployed, exploring every possible scenario involving player rotations and snap counts. Social media chatter further amplifies these discussions, with fans weighing every practice observation and headline for hints. The speculation creates a sense of urgency, as Washington supporters try to anticipate whether this signing positions the team for success or merely delays inevitable problems along the offensive front. Fant's presence has undeniably transformed the narrative around the Commanders' line. Ultimately, the George Fant signing has become a focal point of conjecture, raising more questions than answers about Washington's offensive line heading into the 2025 season. Rumors persist about Coleman's availability, Cosmi's recovery, and how the front office plans to configure the roster for optimal performance. Fans, analysts, and insiders are dissecting every move, trying to predict whether Fant's versatility will stabilize the line or simply paper over deeper vulnerabilities. The swirling speculation reflects both the high stakes involved and the unpredictable nature of NFL roster management. With Jayden Daniels' protection hanging in the balance and playoff ambitions looming, every decision carries enormous weight. In the end, the rumor mill has ensured that Fant's arrival is more than a roster move. It's the spark for weeks of discussion, debate, and anticipation in the Washington football community. If you're enjoying the coverage, Make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. After today's practice, a storm of whispers started spreading like wildfire around the Washington Commanders facility, and if the reports are true, the situation could be on the verge of blowing up completely. Sources inside the locker room claim that head coach Dan Quinn completely lost his composure after a heated training session, throwing his clipboard, raising his voice in a way that nobody had ever seen before, and then reportedly pointing at a specific player while shouting the shocking words, "He doesn't play for me anymore." That phrase alone has been enough to ignite speculation throughout the league, because rarely does an NFL head coach publicly, or even semi-publicly, cut ties emotionally with a player in such a dramatic way. The practice had already been tense, with several scuffles between offense and defense, but Quinn's eruption was described as the breaking point that made everyone realize the atmosphere was not under control anymore, leaving staff and teammates stunned. What makes this rumor even more intriguing is the fact that nobody seems completely sure which player was the actual target of Quinn's fury, since multiple individuals had rough moments during the practice. Some point to a defensive back who had repeatedly missed assignments and was jawing back at coaches, while others suggest it might have been a veteran lineman who has reportedly been clashing with the new coaching staff's philosophy. The lack of clarity only fuels the fire, with social media already exploding with theories, edits, and speculation about who might have been the unfortunate recipient of the coach's wrath. The phrase, "doesn't play for me anymore," echoes with a kind of finality that suggests this was not just a motivational tactic or a passing burst of anger. Players who were close enough to witness the incident say the head coach's face was red with frustration, and the silence that followed his outburst was heavier than anything they had experienced all season long. Observers who have followed Dan Quinn's career know that he is not typically a coach known for losing his cool in such a public way. He has always carried the reputation of a player's coach, someone who communicates clearly and keeps his sideline energy passionate but controlled. That is why this sudden meltdown feels so out of character, raising questions about whether the pressure of turning around the Commanders franchise is beginning to weigh on him more than expected. The organization has been under the microscope since ownership changes, and every small misstep becomes magnified in the eyes of fans and analysts. When a coach who usually prides himself on composure explodes in front of his team, it sends shockwaves beyond the practice field. Some insiders believe this could be the beginning of a deeper rift between the coaching staff and the roster, while others are convinced it's simply a tough love moment that will pass quickly. Still, in the world of the NFL, perception is everything, and once the whispers start circulating, it's nearly impossible to put the genie back in the bottle. Players leaving the facility reportedly looked uncomfortable, avoiding eye contact with reporters and declining to comment, which only adds more weight to the sense that something significant truly happened. Even veteran leaders who usually serve as calming voices within the locker room were described as unusually quiet, almost as if they were waiting for the situation to settle before taking a stand. This silence speaks volumes, because if everything was just a misunderstanding, normally the captains would already be out front spinning the narrative. Instead, what fans and insiders see is an organization circling its wagons, keeping lips sealed, and letting rumors dominate the airwaves. That kind of uncertainty often snowballs into larger controversies, whether intended or not, and the Commanders now find themselves right in the middle of it. Another detail adding fuel to the speculation is the timing of Quinn's explosion. The Commanders are entering a crucial stretch of preparation where roster evaluations are in full swing, and every mistake is magnified by coaches trying to finalize depth charts. If indeed Quinn told a player he would no longer suit up under his command, that could signal an imminent roster move, a trade, or even a release. Teams across the league are constantly monitoring situations like these, waiting to swoop in if a talented player suddenly becomes available due to internal strife. For the player involved, this could mean either a nightmare scenario of being iced out of the lineup or an unexpected opportunity to restart elsewhere. For the team, it represents instability that could derail cohesion, especially if other players feel sympathy for the targeted individual. The ripple effects could stretch far beyond a single heated moment on a practice field. The fan reaction has been exactly what one would expect in today's NFL landscape: instant, chaotic, and divided. Some supporters applaud Dan Quinn for drawing a hard line, saying that accountability and discipline are exactly what this franchise has lacked in recent years. Others argue that a public blow-up of this nature only undermines the locker room, potentially alienating players and damaging trust between the coach and his roster. Message boards, podcasts, and Twitter Spaces are filled with heated debates about leadership styles, with some even questioning whether Quinn's tenure could be shorter than expected if this becomes a pattern. The reality is that winning fixes everything, but until the Commanders start stacking victories, every controversy will be magnified. Fans are desperate for change, but they are also wary of yet another cycle of dysfunction, making this incident an uncomfortable spotlight for both coach and team. Within NFL circles, rival coaches and executives are surely paying attention as well. The league is a small community, and when a head coach loses his cool to the point of essentially exiling a player, that becomes a talking point in closed-door meetings everywhere. Some rivals might see it as weakness, a crack in the armor that can be exploited when facing the Commanders during the season. Others might interpret it as Quinn's attempt to establish dominance and set a tone that he will not tolerate insubordination or sloppy play. Either way, perception shapes reality, and the Commanders will have to work overtime to control the narrative. If they cannot, then opponents will use the whispers to sow doubt and destabilize confidence. And in the NFL, even the smallest cracks can lead to devastating collapses. It is the kind of behind-the-scenes drama that keeps general managers and media insiders buzzing for weeks. Inside the locker room, however, the most pressing question remains unanswered. Will the player in question ever actually see the field again under Dan Quinn? Teammates are said to be whispering quietly, unsure whether the coach's declaration was a final decision or a heat-of-the-moment outburst. Players thrive on clarity, and when the lines between discipline and exile blur, it creates tension that lingers like a shadow over every meeting and practice. Some of the younger players reportedly looked shaken by the incident, unsure whether such a fate could befall them as well. For the veterans, the concern is more about stability and whether Quinn can rally the group back together after such a divisive moment. Leadership will be tested not only from the head coach, but also from locker room figures, who must decide if they will back him fully or quietly sympathize with the player cast aside. What happens next could determine the tone of the Commanders' entire season. If Quinn and the organization address the issue quickly, perhaps even smoothing things over behind closed doors, the team can move forward with renewed focus and resilience. But if the silence continues, and the player remains on the roster yet sidelined, questions will grow louder and confidence could erode. The NFL season is unforgiving, with every distraction magnified by the short schedule and relentless media cycle. This rumor, true or not, now lives in the bloodstream of the Commanders' narrative, and the only cure is clarity and winning. Until then, fans, media, and rivals will keep speculating, dissecting every sideline interaction, every practice rep, and every snap to see if cracks resurface. One thing is certain, Dan Quinn's reputation as a steady, composed leader has been challenged like never before, and the response will shape his legacy in Washington. At the end of the day, the NFL thrives on storylines like this, and whether this moment becomes a mere footnote or a defining chapter depends entirely on what unfolds in the coming days. Was this simply a frustrated coach trying to light a fire under his players, or was it a genuine fracture between leader and roster that could have long-term consequences? The uncertainty is exactly what keeps fans glued to every update, refreshing feeds, and analyzing practice footage like detectives piecing together a mystery. The Commanders, whether they like it or not, are now in the spotlight, carrying the weight of expectation and scrutiny. For Dan Quinn, the path forward will require both authority and humility, the ability to hold his ground while repairing whatever damage may have been done. The NFL waits for no one, and the Commanders' response to this rumor could very well define their season. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.